Hello everyone, welcome to my live stream. My name is Denise Hutchins and I'm broadcasting to you from Studio Mikarts. Our charity of the month is Food Empowerment Project. We have already met and exceeded, thanks to one generous donation, our viewer goal here on Twitch, but I will still be making my monthly donation based on my unique viewers count at the end of the month. So please watch my stream and bring your friends, and maybe we can beat the record again. The last 2 months we beat the record, the all-time high unique viewers count here on Studio Mikarts Twitch channel. So that's pretty exciting. Today is Wednesday, so that means it's time for some illustration work. I've got some of my stuff out, but I was running a little bit late, so let me take a moment to put the rest of my stuff out. So I need my watercolor kit. Oh, I need to move this little cart over here. Whoops, bumped my table. This cart has my paintbrushes on it. And let's see. Got my water, I've got paintbrushes, got paint, I've got my painting. I think that's it. Oh, I have to scoot this over a little bit. Oh, I need my reference images. That's the other thing I needed. A digital thing. So I'm going to readjust my workspace on my secondary monitor here. Let's see. I have a whole folder with my reference images. Well, it's the websites where the images are. I'm just going to open all those and send them to not a device, to a new window. That one, and that one, that one, and that one. And now I can set it here on this side of my screen. And then pull it down. There. Excellent. Yay. Okay. Didn't take too much extra, but I was already a few minutes late, so I didn't want to delay any further getting started once I got the little updates done on for like the title of this stream and whatnot. Okay, so here's what we're working on today. We made excellent progress last week, and we've gotten past that part in the illustration process, which always happens, to me anyway, where I feel like, oh no, this is terrible, what am I doing? This is a horrible piece, or whatever. Now I've got enough color laid down that I'm starting to feel confident again, like, oh yes, this is what I was making. It is going to turn out alright. No matter how many pieces I make, I always end up feeling that way in the beginning of the middle part of the piece. So I feel great about the concept and all the prep work, and then the very first steps of like the sketch and getting the lines figured out and all that stuff. But then once I start adding color, or whatever the middle part is of the project, there's something about that always makes me question everything and wonder, what the heck am I doing? Okay, so it is a relief to be past that part. Let me think about, what do I want to do next? So last thing we did was add lots of color, or at least last thing I remember doing is adding lots of color to the background. And actually looking at this over the past weekend, I really liked how this has made the background a little darker, and having these leaves and the sticks for the nest in the front be this lighter color is actually really great, because there's this great separation that wasn't there before. Before it was all super flat and not very much, it didn't seem like it had much depth, but now this stuff is getting a lot more depth. Oh, that was the other thing I did. I filled in the little negative spaces with some paint. Okay. So, oh, and I see. This was the last thing I did. This is literally the last thing I did. I remember now. I didn't go back and watch my stream, even though I have the video evidence of what did I do last. I don't have time for that. Anyway, these adult griffins, that's who I was painting. I didn't get to this fellow. And I still have, oh, you can't really see it today. But I still have lots of the paint left that I mixed up for these adult griffins with the, at least for their dark plumage. There's actually 4 adult griffins here, but this one, you can only see the beak. So, yeah, let's continue applying that color. That'll be a good idea. Oh, I remembered a thing I don't have. I need a fresh towel to wipe my brush on. I used the last one to clean some white ink after I finished my Usopp chibi on Friday. And I've learned the hard way that the ink can be revived if you, on the towel, if you're not careful, if there's a lot of it, and then you can end up putting ink on your next piece. So I want a fresh, clean towel today. Don't want any unexpected marks, at least if I can help it. There. So we'll use this one for like another few months. I try to use them as much as possible because once the watercolor is dried on it, you can just keep using it over and over and over. It's just when you put something else on the towel, like ink or, I don't know what else, graphite? I don't know what else you'd use it for, but anyway, what brush do I want? Probably tiny brush. This tiny? Yeah, this is not very much. Not very much on this griffin to fill in. So we will revive the color from last week with a little bit of water. Sorry you can't see the color. It's so frustrating because when I'm doing a chibi drawing, I'm like, oh, the drawing is so small, nobody can see anything. When I'm doing this size of piece, which isn't even that big, I work quite small for compared to a lot of other artists who do similar work to me. A lot of illustrators work a lot bigger than I do. But anyway, I guess I could move the camera up a little bit. There's room to move it up. So I guess I'll try that. I never really considered that before. I could move the camera up for chibi, or move it up for illustration and move it down for chibi. Doesn't really help very much. Yeah, the cable. Okay, if I move my lights, but I want to keep the angle nice too, so it's not disorienting. It's my table is actually at an angle. It's a drafting table. Let's see, how's that? There. I think that's a bit better. It's not that much better though. Because now it's cutting it off at the bottom. I don't know if I actually like that better. Maybe we'll do something in between. Like, oh, now it's turned. That's why I have this blue strip of paper, so that I can tell where I want the bottom of the camera to be. Never really adjusted it on stream before though. Well, at least now this way. And I'm using the rings from my sketchbook to see if it's even this way. I think it is. This way you can at least see what I'm working on the palette, even if you can't see the colors in the wells up above. And this is not like at risk of coming off of the bottom of the frame all the time. Okay, figured it out. Let us continue. Let us begin, actually. Not even continue. We didn't even start yet. Look at this cool swirl in the water. This naturally happened. Okay. I'm still just sort of adding color, but also starting to become more aware of shadow shading. So trying to keep that in mind. That some of this lighter black color I actually might want to keep. Be the beginnings of my shading for these griffins. The overall lighting idea is fairly diffuse, but coming from above and maybe a little bit in front. Because they are among all these trees and the branches and stuff, so I don't think there would be too much really hard direct light from the sun on them. Little teeny tiny claws. I mean, they're not teeny tiny to the griffin, but it's so far away, it's teeny tiny to me on the page. And the tail hanging down. Many people have described these simply as birds. I've been aware of it from the beginning that there's not that much indication that, wait a minute, these aren't birds. But I've found it quite fun in the past when people have thought that and then they take a second look and they're like, wait a minute. That's the bottom of the bird isn't right. So I don't mind. I don't mind if they're not. Oh, I'm trying to use this nice little brush holder and it's not staying there. Okay. I don't mind if they're not instantly recognized. Overall, the scene is what's important to me. The emotion of the scene. A happy birthday scene. I wonder if I should go darker using, because I have so much of this color mixed. If I should just go ahead and do the next level of shading on the adult griffins. I think I may as well because there's so much of it and everybody but this one is dry, so we can just go ahead and do that. Yeah, I'm not going to use this. It's not working. It doesn't work for my, what if I put it this way? But that's not very useful for me to grab. I'll just keep laying my brushes. I found that yesterday. I mean, I say I found it. It's been there sitting on this little, what is this called? A Lazy Susan that has lots of my tools on it, little pen organizer, all this stuff. It's been there, but I would always forget about it. But last week when I was doing the Usopp chibi and I was adding the white ink, I was like, man, I don't want to set this down. It's going to get ink all over the table. That's when I remembered this little glass pen holder. But it's not working for the brush. The brush just goes, shoop, and falls right off. So I will not use that. Alright, I'm going to get my biggest brush, fill it full of water, and then just basically, I think, add, oh, maybe I can add some blue. Oh, I was just going to add black to make it darker. That's kind of simple. Let's add some blue. That'll make it look different from the rest, too. So far, we've got the adults have a greenish black, and then the babies have a brownish black. But since we're getting deeper and deeper into shade, how about adding some blue to make it cool? Because shade is always cool colored. It's actually a bit frustrating to me because when I am taking a photo, so often, if I take the photo in the shade, it's so cool looking. It's like the light temperature is so cool that it does not look like how I saw it with my own two eyes. I added some blue. That's a very pretty color, but I think I do still want to add some black. Darken it up. Let's get a little bit more water. Need more water for the pigment to ride in. But my palette can't handle much more water here on the mixing area. So this is going to be it, I think. And of course there's more I can add because I'm going to do some ink work once I'm done with the watercolor, so I'll be able to add even more. I can add black ink and do hatching or even like whole patches of black ink using a brush, so I don't have to get it to like the darkest possible color using watercolor. Okay, I'll squeeze out as much as I can from this brush. Okay, set that in there for a sec. Wipe my fingers off. Got my fingers relatively clean. There's still like a little bit left on my thumb, but that's probably fine. I'll wipe it on my pants too. I'm wearing black pants, fine. No one will know, except for anybody watching this. Okay, I think I rinsed that out good. Dry it out on the towel. And this brush is a bit small for doing this one, this Gryphon. Trying to be a little bit more descriptive with my words. Instead of saying this thing, this, and then if somebody is just casually watching and more listening, it doesn't make any sense I'm not explaining what anything is. Trying to improve there. Alright, see what this looks like. Got my, this is my out of the brushes I've gotten out for this project so far, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is the second to smallest. It's a size what, 2? It's a size 2. In fact, I think I got it out last time. What is this? Is this some paint that I've splashed on my desk? Hold on. I like to clean this kind of thing up now. It's way easier to clean it while it's still fresh and wet. There. Otherwise it can get stuck on there. And then you have this little spot on your desk forever and you wonder if it's like a little flake of something or what is it? No, it's just stuck on there. Okay. For real, let's paint. Let's paint. So with the light coming down from above, I think there will be a lot of shadow here on these spiky feathers on the head. This is definitely a nice step darker, but since it's watercolor, it's also going to dry a lot lighter. So I wonder if I will need a third dark shadow color. We'll just stick with this for now and see what it looks like once it's dry. It's definitely giving a nice amount of, what is the word? I'm trying to think contortion, but that's not right. Contour, I think is what I was thinking of. That's not quite right either. Anyway, the head is looking more 3D. Let's put it that way. That's a little bit closer to the word I was thinking of. I have so many words in my head, I cannot access them all. It's like I don't have enough RAM. So you go to the thesaurus all the time, especially when I'm writing. I'll be like, I know there is a word that describes what I'm trying to say. It's kind of like this word, but this word is not right. And then I'll just spend 5 minutes finding it. Half the time I find it, I'm like, yes, that's what I was thinking. The other half of the time, I'm like, I guess my initial word was the best, and I go with the initial word. Okay. And that wing done. Now for the leg. Did a nice gradient here on the leg, but now to give it some little bit of furry texture, I'm going to use little small brush strokes. And it's nice as the brush loses watercolor and I move up, it sort of does a natural gradient since I started from the darkest part down here. Alright, here's their foot, back foot. It's so dark it's already lost all of the shape that it had originally with some toes drawn and one claw was visible, but I think that's fine. This is not the focus of the piece, so it's okay if it sort of fades into the rest of the scene. Let's do a little bit on the neck. Do the same thing as with the leg. So we bring it up. Hopefully it naturally. Let's take a little bit off. It's not doing it as fast as I'd like. Naturally gradates up to a lighter color, giving the sense of a somewhat diffuse light hitting it and lighting it. Yeah, it's looking better and better. And I have to remember eventually that I have this, oh, what is it called? Oh, masking fluid. Here it is. I have this masking fluid on the parts of the griffin that are made up of the tiger quoll, which is the back half. You can see it better here. I'll hold it up so you can see it. You can still see it here quite well, but when you look over here, it's almost disappeared. So I have to remember that I need to take that off so that I can get that nice spotted texture that I built up. Okay, now the legs, forelegs. And this one I think is covered more by this baby griffin. So we'll just make it all dark. This one is exposed to more light. So the left one is getting shaded by this baby that's next to it. Sweet. This one next, and hopefully I still have up, I might have to go find it again. Reference image with the wings spread out. Oh, hold on. I didn't put my phone on the charger. Hold on a second. Oh, it was at 94% anyway. Also, I want to make sure that its sound is off. And that reminds me, I think I left the sound on my computer. It's not usually a problem, but I don't want to get that weird... If something were to happen, I don't want to get that weird echoey effect where it's hearing me and then it's hearing the recording of me and then it's hearing the recording of me and then it's going back. I can't remember what that's called. Feedback loop or something? I think that's what that is. Anyway, in order to avoid that, I try to remember to turn my speakers off. Okay, I'm shaking up my shaker bottle because I want some water. It's not just water, it's the dregs of my green smoothie. And I just put some mineral water in there and shake it up, and then that way I'm getting all the nutrition, all those little micronutrients. I don't like to waste them. Okay, I am refreshed and satisfied with the state of my stuff. So let's move on to this. That's right, I was finding the reference. With the wings out, with the wings out. So that's with the wings out, but that's from the back. I need one from the front. Was it this site that had a nice one? Oh, yes, it is. Okay. Let me click on the image to make it bigger. Wonderful. This site is so good, I actually tried to find if they had a donation page, if I could just make like a little... I don't have a lot of money, but just make a little donation and things for all of these very useful reference images, but they don't have one, so... But they're called... I guess I can give them a shout out. The website is called... Goodness, what is it even called? This page is called Little Pied Cormorant. Maybe it's at the bottom? It has, like, you can contribute other animal sounds, bird sounds. I don't know. Well, the URL is mdahlem.net/birds. They don't just have Little Pied Cormorant. They have all kinds of birds, and they have the sounds they make, and they have all sorts of different interesting poses and such, which is actually quite nice because when you do a Google image search for any kind of animal, it tends to be in some glorious but stereotypical pose, like some majestic pose or, I don't know, they're very common poses. And so it's actually hard to get an idea of what the animals look like in all kinds of situations. Like, what kind of things do they do other than lay down or look at the sunset or I don't know. But this place is great because they have all kinds of, they even have, what do they call it? I think they called it a compromising position. The bird was like having a little potty break. They're like, cormorant caught in a compromising position or whatever. It was funny. Well, who knows? That could be useful to someone. It's nice when this is a bird, I think almost literally across the world, on the other side of the planet from me. I would never see one. Maybe I would never see one in my life. Who knows? Like, maybe I'll go to Australia, but maybe I won't. And even if I go to Australia, I might not see this bird. But thanks to the glory of the internet and awesome sites like this one, I can see a lot about different behaviors they have, even just from a still photo. And yeah, anyway, it's just singing the praises of this awesome website. Let's put a little bit more dark inside. The wing actually is a curve shape, so we need a little bit more of this dark inside of it. It's here with these longer feathers that you start to get this sort of see-through effect. But here on this main bulk of the wing, there's lots and lots of layers, so there's not like light coming through very much. There. I should have done this wing first, because now I can't work on it because this part is wet, and if I put my hand on it, that won't be good. It's also toward the tips more that there's a little bit more light hitting. So let's shade this whole thing as a single unit so that the tips of the feathers look more brilliant. Yep, and bring some more down here. It's really, really tough, actually, to paint something black because it's, especially with watercolor, you can't like lighten it up. You can paint stuff on top of it, but it won't look the same as if you just left it be and let the lightness of the paper shine through. It's still not dry though. Doshio. I guess I could do this leg. A nice gradient effect here. And this is the back foot. You can barely tell because it's so small. I guess that'll have to be good enough. And we can do the tail. Taking the tail out a little bit further than it was because there's these little tiny lines in between the background and the tail of white paper still showing, and I don't want that. It's called a halo effect, and I don't really want that because I want the characters to look like they're part of the background, especially these background characters. The foreground characters, I do want them to stand out, but I don't want it to look like they're just magically placed there. I want them to look like they exist in the environment. Okay, is this dry? It's still a little bit damp. Just letting it dry for a minute. So I didn't put down too much paint. It's not coming off on my fingers, so I think just a few more seconds it'll be good so that I can use my dominant hand and actually set it down on there without smearing the paint. So get another drink. Okay, how's that? I think that's all right now. Let us continue. Do this wing. It's got that same curved effect. And the top edge is quite well lit. And then it's not until you get to these big, longer individual feathers that it's really light again. Otherwise it's quite dark. You can't really even see what's going on very much with the feathers in this area, because that's just how dark it is. That's how big the contrast is. Let's tighten this up a little bit more. Alright, I think that's good for that. I want to add more, but I'm not able to do what I want because it's so wet now. So let's work on the leg, and yeah, we'll just do the leg, I think. The front legs, I want to leave them, I think, because I want them to stand out, and they're so small, there's hardly anything you can do with them. So for now, I'm just going to leave the front legs as they are on this griffin, so that perhaps they'll stand out because they are lighter than everything else. And they're not even lighter. Then when this one dried, it's the same color. Actually, I'm going to add a little bit more paint over here. Good with that one. So we did this one, we did this one. Wait, we didn't do the head on this one. The head and the neck. Don't need too much, it's a very small area. Getting more and more defined bit by bit. So their eyes are actually fairly dark, except for that they are rimmed by yellow, but this one is so far away, I'm just going to put a little bit of black. Its eyes have, ooh, a little splash right there. I was lucky that I didn't get it on anywhere I wanted it. Or anywhere I didn't want it. Anyway, this one's eyes have been little empty white circles all this time, so I'm gonna just add some of this paint. Boop. And oh, look at that. Is it on the back? No. This little blob right on the edge. There. Right now it just looks like that griffin has no eyes, but hopefully by the end when I add some ink and even add some either whitewash or white ink, the idea of eyes will come through just from like little tiny dots of white probably and maybe a little ink outline or something to help define it. So now I think we're ready to work on this fellow again. Going to the smallest brush. Well, I say going to, but we were just using it on the head of the middle griffin. I'm trying to be a little bit more precise. So easy to do these little small ones. It's just so fast. It's such a tiny little space. Oh, shall we go another level darker? I think we should. It's still not quite black, and it's because I keep mixing other colors in. So let's do one more level. So this is the third darkest. Well, this is the fourth level of color. Let's just get a whole bunch of black. So I'm waking up my dry watercolor with the big brush full of water and just sort of swirling the bristles over the dry watercolor, and then that helps pull the pigment into the brush. Hopefully that's enough. Oh yeah, that's quite black. So probably won't even be able to tell that there's any other pigment in here. So I want to be really careful with this. I don't want to overdo it. With watercolor, I think it's better to underdo than overdo. To be sort of selective with shadows and really dark areas. This watercolor really looks most beautiful when the paper is allowed to be part of the image. When you put black paint on there, it really obliterates it. It will still come through a little bit because it's watercolor, so it's translucent. Okay, I think that's clean enough. I'm gonna have to change this. Let's see, it's break time in 10 minutes or so. I'm gonna have to change this water because now it's like so black it's gonna bring the pigment into any other color I want to use next. Okay, let's do this. I'm gonna do my best again to work from right to left, since I'm left-handed, so that the page will always be dry as I'm moving across. So definitely down here at the bottom of this leg would be nice and dark. Very little light reaching in here. And probably this foot too. Just get this whole foot all black too. The back foot. Any little touches on the front foot. Again, I don't want to do too much. Less is more in the world of watercolor. This foot I determined would be very shaded by this little baby one being right next to this adult, so I'm not going to keep too much. But I put a little bit, I left a little bit of an edge, highlighted edge on the arm, and maybe on this finger sticking out over here. Oh right, and these feet are webbed, so this should be, I forgot about that. Paint these in. Their feet are webbed, so these should also be painted in. The spaces between the fingers, that's what I'm talking about. Work on your descriptive language, me. Alright, moving up. The wing. This part where it's really curving back. I think that would be pretty shaded. Maybe right here where it's meeting lighter feathers. And under the claws of this baby griffin that's gripping the wing. Let's go to the small brush, actually. I was about to do little extra bits here, but I think I want the smallest brush for that. Well, as it's drying, the only thing I think I want to change is right here. Let's see if we can soften this right here a little bit. Might even use a towel to pull some pigment off. It's a little bit too strong. At least compared to how it's looking everywhere else. I think that's good. Okay, let's let that dry. Move on to this one in the middle. This Gryphon in the middle. Stay with the small brush. Try to add a little more details, because while I said it's very hard to see what's going on here in this really shaded part, the wing is sort of cupping. You still can see. It's just a very subtle difference. So try to get that in there. I'm really relying on this reference image of the pied cormorant having the wings out. There's a distinct line where the feathers are overlapping each other here. These big feathers at the bottom. So they overlap and then you can't see as much light through them, so it looks like a line. I think that's pretty good. It doesn't have to be super naturalistic and like absolutely precise. What I hope to get across is just the idea, so that if anybody looked at it, they would know what I meant. I realized that, and it's hard because I still deal with perfectionism plenty of times, but taking it so far that I'm forcing myself to make each individual feather seen properly or whatever is not really conducive to what I really want to do, which was just tell a story. I want to tell a story with this image and with all my illustrations. So realizing that and starting to work from that point of view makes it a lot more fun and a lot less stressful. Okay, I'm going to let the paint dry just a tiny bit and then start adding a little bit more water to it to get the little... Oh, you can't really tell. Let me hold it up while it dries. So there's this much more subtle change from light to dark on this wing. Right now it's pretty stark contrast. There's really defined lines between the dark areas and the light areas. But I want to let it dry a little bit first because I don't want it to just end up all being super black. I want to get like some contrast, some gradient. And aside from letting it dry, I also allow it, or I put the extra water that I'm adding to sort of thin it out and spread it out at the bottom, not in the pigment. And then that way they can come together, and that's how you can get the gradient, because you've got the water with like no pigment, the area that you've painted, so there's water but a lot more pigment, and then they come together if you brush from the less to the more. But if you brush from the more to the less, you just end up spreading all of the pigment everywhere, and you don't get as nice of a transition. And it's tough right here because there's this branch, so I just have to sort of paint in a different way that sort of makes it look like this is happening, this nice gradient from here to here, but actually these are two separate spots. So I have to paint them separately. But I think I've got that going. Oh, it's break time. This is a good spot. I still have to do more, but let's stop right here for a break. I guess I won't bother changing my water yet because I'm gonna have to, but I don't know, I won't mix more of this color. I will mix more of this color. Maybe I could work on something else though. Okay, I'm going to change my water. So I might take a little bit longer break than usual. Normally 5 minutes. I will put this up. Let's put it here where it's more obvious. Put that up. Maybe 5 to 10 minute break. Gonna go stretch and rest my eyes and change this bowl of water. I'll be back. Hello everyone, I am back from a BRB sign away. Hope you all had a great break too. I actually don't know how long that was. I didn't keep track. I looked at my watch and then the time completely went out. I did not remember what time it was when I first took my break. It doesn't matter. I'm done having a break. I had a little snack. I had a little stretch. Now I'm going to have a little drink. I was getting hungry. That's why I was like, oh, look, it is break time. Like, actually, my stomach rumbling kind of hungry. So I was like, let's eat a little 100-calorie snack. Okay. So as I was looking at this as I was stretching. And I'm not going to do anything yet because I think it'll be good to do more of let's describe this more accurately, to paint more of the scene before taking any action on this. But I'm realizing that this right now, this griffin in the middle, which is supposed to be one of the most farthest away, is actually coming forward just as much as this one, which is very close to us. So if I remember later, if it still looks that way, I would like to add more paint to push this fellow into the background where they belong. Bring this one forward. But yeah, as it is now, I'm happy with, if I look at this griffin on its own without considering the whole scene, I'm happy with how it's looking. Same thing with this one, except I need to do a little bit more on the bottom half. And then we'll work on this one, and let's move on to like a completely different color. Let's do something different. Nah, not even work on the brownish black feathers of the babies. Let's work on something else. Maybe the white feathers of the adults. That'll be good. Okay. So while I created little fur texture strokes on this close-up griffin's leg, these ones are so far away, I don't think you'd be able to see such a thing. Because in general, if I'm remembering the tiger quoll images I saw correctly, that's very smooth fur. So you actually can't see very much fur texture at all. So definitely from a far distance like this, you wouldn't see anything. So I'm going to make this a nice, smooth gradient as much as possible. And adding some black to the toes to help give them a little bit more definition. So here it's not really about shading, but about showing that these are feet. I'll probably add some ink as well later to really send the idea home. I can get much finer lines with my pen nibs than with my brushes. And just a little bit of extra black where the feathers might be casting a shadow on the front legs. Okay, that's good. Let's add a little bit extra to the tail. Since it's just hanging down like that, there's nothing in particular shading it other than this branch. So I'm just going to add a little bit for that. But even that, I want to soften. I don't want it to be a really strong shadow. There, that's good. Ooh, looks good. Took my eyes away for a second and quite pleased with how it's looking. I say I'm pleased and then I'm like, wait, here's a little spot. I'm gonna add just a tiny bit back in there. I'm just patting. I'm not even brushing. I'm just patting my brush on the page. Yeah, once these are dry, I'll hold this up so you can see the overall effect. But let's paint this fellow here on the left. The one that is so easy because they're so small and not with big wings like their neighbor there. Do the same thing with this one's tail. Just a little shadow cast by the branch, and then also diffuse the bottom part of it as it comes down the tail. Nice. Clean my brush off. We'll rinse it off. I always say clean, but I'm not really cleaning it. I'm just rinsing it. Because I do actually have brush cleaner. I have this solid block, and you rub your wet brush on it, and it really gets it clean. And then I have like a beauty brush cleaner, but it works perfectly well for any brush. And then rub it in there until all the soap looks clean and no more pigment is coming out. That's cleaning it. This is just a little rinse. Okay. Oh, I think that's dry enough for me to lift this up and... Oh wait, I see a spot where I can add a little bit more. I didn't do any of this super dark black on the head of the griffin in the middle background. Don't need much, but we could put little dots to indicate pupils in the eyes and some little lines to show these fluffy feathers on the head. There. Now let's rinse the brush again. Boom. Okay, now I shall lift this up and let you see how we've done. Yeah. Getting nice and dark. I don't think it's focusing though. There we go. We'll start again. And this one in the middle. I'm really happy with how these outstretched wings turned out. This, so nice and subtle. Very pleased. Very pleased with that. Worked pretty well over here, even though I had to paint these sections separately. And then of course this little guy. I keep thinking I'm done, and then I see a spot that could use a little bit more. Right here, where the claws are gripping this branch. A little bit more black. And on these claws too. Let's leave it. It's really hard to get super precise. I do have a smaller brush than this, but it doesn't actually really work that well to get really teeny tiny. I'll just save that for when I'm doing ink with a little, I think it's called a Maru pen nib. And it's just this little tiny cylinder. So I'll save that for then. What color do I want to work on next? Since I have established shadows on all of the black feathers and fur on these griffins, I could just go ahead and work on the white part. And it's interesting, this was a mistake right here. Oh, you can't really see. This was a mistake. It was black paint mixed with blue or green. Well, it's got to be green because it was meant to be the lightest color of black on here, like this color. And I was like, wait, no. Unlike the babies, which are completely black, the adults are white and black. That's why they're called pied cormorants, because pied means two-colored. But this color actually looks perfect when I'm looking at my reference image of the one that has wings similar to this. The whole pose is not like this, but the wings are similar. I can see the belly actually is this kind of bluish color. So I'm going to try to mix something like that. But I'm not going to paint black and sponge it away and towel it away over and over. That's too risky. Let's just try to mix a nice light gray blue. See if we can get that kind of color to be the first bit of shadow color for the white feathers and fur on these griffins. I'm actually just mixing in all kinds of other remnants of colors here on my palette. It's actually not bad. I just need more of the color though. That's not enough. Especially for this big one here. But I'll definitely water it down a lot. So that I have discovered is my favorite way of making a gray color. I have done so many times adding white to black to get a gray, but then it doesn't really look gray. It looks pastel gray, which is slightly different. Hey, just a, oh, I'll even take it from here. Just a little touch of the black paint. We don't need a bunch. So this is shadow for white feathers. This might be good. I like this. Of course, it'll look a little different on the page. We can test it, actually. That's why I leave all these big margins here. Let's just test what it looks like. Oh, look at that. This looks almost the same. Awesome. There's the color, just, of course, it will dry slightly lighter. But then this little mark on this one's chest is what I'm trying to imitate. And that's pretty close. So I shall squeeze out what color is left in this brush. What pigment is left in it, pigment and water. Okay. Guess I need a second towel. I need a second towel to just wipe my hand on. Give me a second, I'm just gonna go over here and get another one. It's hard to keep picking my brushes off of the towel that I use to wipe them on. There we go. Then I can use this for dabbing too, if I need to dab the page. Sweet. 2 towels. Done it in the past, but not proactively, so I won't in the future. I'm going to try to always remember. Have 2 towels when you're watercoloring. One for swiping, one for wiping. So this has not quite dried, but it's starting to come into, starting to reveal what it will look like once it's fully dry. That is pretty good. I do want to thin it out more than that though. In order to do that, oh, there was no paint on it this time. I have been dropping my brush every illustration stream since last week. But this time there was no paint on it, so I didn't. Let me show you the different places. There's right here. I dropped my brush, and the other place, right here. This one was pretty good. I was able to catch it really fast and clean it. I did it again. I did it again. I don't know why it's an issue. It's not something new necessarily, but to do it every single stream, that's new. Okay. What I was going to say is that in order to thin it out, I'm going to paint with just water to start to wet the page and then add the pigment to that. I'm doing my best to avoid all this really dark black paint that I've recently done. It's watercolor's mostly permanent once it's down, but I found that when you have a really, really thick application like right here, many, many layers, and the paper is hardly showing through, that you can reawaken it. So I don't want to do that. Don't want to reawaken the paint if possible. Okay, I think that's good for my water application. Yep, already some is coming onto the page from the side. That's okay, there's a little bit of that black in this color I mixed anyway. So let's start at the bottom. So that's where we want it to be darkest. Ooh, I love this blue. I love doing colors in my shadows and not just doing plain old black or something. It looks, I don't care if it's completely naturalistic, it looks good. Plus, it is fairly naturalistic. This bird I'm looking at in the reference image definitely has a blue tint. Maybe because of the water is below it? Ooh. That would make sense. I can't tell if this part is meant to be branch or meant to be belly. I can't tell what my own drawing is supposed to be. Okay, now I'm doing a little less, oh, what's the term? I am painting not a full section with water, but just little bits here and there to give it a texture. Now we shall add the blue. This is going to dry super light once it's done. The paper is so thirsty, I keep having to dip for more water. Say that maybe there would be more shadow here where the baby is. But also, let's pull some away here on the side. I think the sun would be hitting here, so the chest would come out a bit. It's not just straight flat, it's like a balloon shape almost. Okay, keep moving up the neck. Here I think we will get more solid shading again. So the neck itself is now, well, the head is now casting a shadow on its own neck. Adding the pigment to this water that I've put down. This is great because the side of the face can now stand out a bit more too. It was getting lost with the only thing dividing it from the neck beneath it was this little line of graphite from tracing the sketch onto the watercolor. Now there's something a little bit more substantial. think that's good for our first round. Maybe pull a little bit off right here. That's the way I think the light would hit. I love this dry brush sort of effect. It's not exactly dry brush, but I love these edges. I love getting these little edges. Come on, camera, work with me. Thank you. These little edges between where the color is and the paper below. I've got the same thing going on like right here too. So nice. It's one of my favorite things about watercolor, is just seeing that effect. So we'll call this good for now. Let's work on this one in the back. It's going to be way faster because it's so much less space. But there's a lot more black paint to be aware of. Do my best. I'm just painting with water to start, just like with this Gryphon. The Gryphon we just finished. And then we'll add the pigment to that, and then it will be nice and thinned out so that it's not too much for the first layer. We'll probably add more. Just like with the black, we did four or five passes with black paint. Darker and darker and darker. So probably do the same thing with this. This is nice because it's helping the front legs look like they're sticking out from the body instead of being flat cardboard. Get my trusty towel. Dab away a little bit. This also makes it more smooth transition with the white areas that we want to retain. Oh, looks good. Okay, next one. This one, and maybe we can even conceal this. So far has been very obvious. Well, we'll call it a mistake. I don't like using the word mistake because that's part of the reason I like physical media stuff so much, is that it's unpredictable and sometimes you have things that happen that weren't intended and you have to deal with them. I actually quite enjoy that. So I don't like calling it a mistake exactly, but it's a really obvious mark that was not intended. Mistake is the best word for that. So I'm going to see if we can just conceal that with this color that we mixed up. So worst case scenario, I can always fix it, make it look how I want in Photoshop. So this is going to have Photoshop work anyway. All of my work has Photoshop work. Sometimes it's just a little basic cleanup for digital presentation. Other times it's a little more intensive. A lot of times it's because I have planned from the beginning that, oh, I'm going to do this thing and I'm going to do this thing. Unfortunately, this mark is right where it would be the lightest part. Right where the sun would be hitting. So I don't think we can hide it. I'll just have to lighten it up in Photoshop later. But at least it's not as obvious now that the rest is done. Actually, I want to add a little bit more pigment to the bottom here next to the branch. Yeah, it looks good. We do the same thing here. This is the darkest part. And let it just whoosh, diffuse into the existing wet areas so that it makes this nice natural gradient. The 2 towels idea is a good idea. So I use the little corner sometimes just to pick up the teeny tiniest bit of paint. It's really important to keep changing to a clean bit though. I've learned the hard way multiple times from multiple, I didn't learn the first time basically, that if you keep sucking up paint and not letting it dry on the towel first, you can end up putting that paint back down. Oh, you like it? And it does dry quite subtly. We can see the difference. If you look at this one, wow, like, yeah, even on the camera, it almost looks like no difference at all. Oh, Exie, hello! How are you? I'm waving underneath my painting. Hello! Thank you for joining me. How are you doing? Did you have a great weekend? Yay! I'm so happy that you're here. I've been streaming by myself all this time. Which is fine, I'm used to it, but it is always nicer to have you here. Oh, good. You said you're all right. Wonderful. I'm always happy to hear it. How am I? I'm good too. I'm especially happy with how this piece is coming along. So it probably looks, since you last saw it, I think you can tell all the work I've done today. What I was just showing was the shadow color that I've mixed up for the white feathers. Looks pretty bold when it's wet, but then when it's dry, you can barely tell the difference, which is excellent because these are white feathers, so I want that. I want that subtle quality. I need to let those dry before I add another layer because I don't want to actually put my hand on it, because your skin can actually suck up the paint, and I don't want to take any paint away, especially since it's going to dry so suddenly. Oh, thank you so much. Yay! I'm glad you think so. I appreciate it. Shake up my shaker bottle and have a... There's hardly any water left in here. Have another drink. Oh, excuse me. Ooh. I inhaled a little tiny drop of water. Hold on, I gotta cough some more. Okay, I'm back. I'm back. I'm alive. I didn't want to hear. I didn't want to let you hear my pathetic. I sucked in water into my lungs, coughing. I do that quite often. I don't know why. I get so excited, I guess, and I don't finish actually drinking my drink, and then I start talking before it's gone. Anyway, there's only 20 minutes left. So I would like to get the white to the same level as the dark areas. The white area is, when you consider this whole big thing, it might be about the same. But there's a lot less detail because this is just like this sort of round shape. These have a more feathery, specific feather shapes. So I think I can do that, but I want this to dry so that I don't get it on my hand. So I'm just testing. I think it's pretty dry though. Okay. Yeah, I think it's good, especially if I'm careful. It might be the tiniest bit damp, but I'll be careful. Okay, hold on. I gotta blow my nose after that coughing session. Okay, I'm back again. Jeez, it's because I got so excited because Exie got here. I don't have to be alone for the last 25 minutes of my stream. Yay! Okay. I'm just going to do the same technique, which is put water down first because I do want it to still stay really watered down for the color. Just put water on the page first. And I think this little bit is meant to be a branch and not the belly of this griffin, so I'm going to paint this next round with that in mind. This little bit on the side probably even needs to be darker than the rest because the leg would be casting more shadow. Okay, let's try this. Boop. Just guiding the paint into the different areas I want it to go. This is something, if I could find my other streaming cam, I would love to show close up because it's so satisfying to have the water on the page and to put the pigment in, and the way it goes shoop spreading out in that really natural watery way is so satisfying. I love it. Probably good there. Up here I just want to add a little bit more under the head so that the white feathers that are on the griffin's cheek basically stand out even more against the neck, which is right next to it. And it's the same color feathers. So I'm going to add more shadow to help make that separation more visible. Just allow that natural diffusion of the water of the pigment in the water to take place. Man, I hate it when I breathe in a little liquid because then I'm like have to clear my throat for the rest of the day because my lungs are like, oh nope, 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 here's a little bit more. Here's more. We found some more. That's pretty good. Pretty good. I'm having to use my imagination here because I do not have a reference image for this pose. So hopefully this is believable. The shading. Hopefully the shading is believable. Maybe a little bit more off to the side here. So that the baby griffin can stand out a bit more. Dab a little bit here to soften the transition. Pull it down to the edge. I'm getting that halo effect again, trying to not get that. Pull it down all the way to the edge where the baby griffin is. Okay, let's call that good for the second pass on this griffin. I don't need too much more on these smaller ones in the background. I think the darkest part will be underneath them because they're both kind of sitting on the branches with their back legs and their front legs really close together. I think the way their bodies would be in that position would cause a lot of shadow. on their bellies, basically. And maybe a little bit more right here at the bottom of the neck, because the neck is not just a straight up and down, it's going in a sort of sinuous shape. And a little bit under the chin too. Shadow cast by the head on its own self. Let's let that dry and see what it looks like. And then this fellow, not even putting the water down, I'm just going to put this directly on and then thin it up. Use my towel again. Soften the edges. Yeah, it's still too wet to do the next level of dark color, and I do want more, especially right here, this little section where there's the front leg, the back leg, the nest, the baby. They're all would be preventing light from reaching this part of this griffin's belly, but it's still damp, so I don't want to do it yet. I guess I'll hold it up while it's drying, show the addition of the next layer of, and it's much more visible on the camera, next layer of white plumage shading. You can also see that this one is still very wet. You can see the light reflecting on it. And then this one too. Wonder if while that's drying there's something else I can work on. There's only about 10 minutes left. Could work on their hats. That's such a small little thing. Let's mix a little green shadow color. I don't even remember exactly what colors I mixed to make the hat color in the first place, but I think as long as it's a darker color, it'll probably be fine, because the translucence of the watercolor will mean that the original color shines through. It's not dark enough. What shall we add to make it darker? Maybe a little blue. A little brown. There we go. I might add a touch of black to it as well, but I try not to resort to that because it can be so overpowering, and I don't want to have black pigment in everything. I think we're getting there. Oh yeah, that's looking nice. Let's try this. Oh, how about a tiny bit more blue? There. All right, rinse my brush out. And let's do the same thing. Ugh, I gotta be careful. This part is so wet. Maybe I'll turn it upside down. Haha! I can paint it this way. I'm gonna do the same thing as with the white feathers and put water down first and then add the pigment and then dab away where I want the light to be shining. So let's try. Oh, it's not really that much darker. I thought it would be a lot darker. Maybe it's because I put the water down first. Makes sense. Okay. Dabbing with a little thin edge of the towel, which I actually squeeze with my fingers to try to make it as thin as possible. Yeah, it's too small. This hat is too small for that to work. It just takes all the pigment away when I use the towel. But I am slowly getting a little bit of shaded gradient. Maybe I can use the paintbrush to pull some up. I think it's really working though. It's just the same flat color all across. Okay, well, we tried. Let's do one of these other hats. Won't put the water down first because I don't think that's going to work. Even if these hats are slightly bigger, they're still not that big. That's why I picked them to do next, because I didn't think it would take too long. Oh, that's better. It's a much better gradient from light to dark. Oh, it just looks like a wet patch. Well, you can trust me that it looks better than the small hat in the background. Is this even on? Is this even on the screen? I'm getting so into it, I'm not paying attention to whether it's visible to everybody watching. Oh, thank you! Yay, thank you very much! I'm glad! Let's see if this little hat is dry enough to get some shadow on. Ooh, I think it is. Yay! I was trying to wipe my brush and I wiped it on my finger. Okay, let me wipe that off. What the heck? It's like ever since I got that cold, my hands have lost like 1% of their dexterity. There's like a little... Like I'm imagining in Suikoden when you're poisoned It's Genso Suikoden, my favorite game. When you're poisoned, there's this little devil that comes up and pops out of your character repeatedly to show that you're poisoned. That's how I feel like. Because I keep making, like, not even huge mistakes, but little stuff like dropping my brush or whatever, which I did earlier today. Thank goodness there was nothing on it. But then just now, like, trying to wipe and somehow ending up wiping on my hand instead. It's weird. Okay, I think I got it. It's really hard to get the kind of transition I'm hoping for on this hat. Who knew such a little thing would give me so much trouble? Okay. Oh, that's looking pretty good. Yay! Yep. Ever since I breathed that water, my lungs are like, here's some more gunk for you. Please take it away. Okay. There's a few minutes left. Should I go? Let's go ahead and do it. Some darker color. I'm actually going to add a little bit more black to this blue that I mixed for shading on the white plumage. I still want to use the water though. I don't want it to be too dark, but I'm going to do this part where it really seems like it should be a lot darker than it is. So right now it has an effect like somehow light is coming up through the nest, and that's definitely not the look I'm going for. So on these guys, maybe that would be the case because they're just balancing on these little branches, so some light could totally be coming up and lighting up their bellies. But this griffin on the on the right is sitting in the nest. So they should definitely not have some mystery light lighting up their belly. I'm just trying to build more gradient from that really dark I put down, and let's put even more. Let's put more down here. It'd be nice and dark. More here too. More, 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 more. I'm always trying to hold back, and then there comes a point where I'm like, it's not enough. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Soften the edge with my towel. Ah, I like that much more. Oh, it just looks like a shiny patch on the camera. Well, until it's dry, you won't be able to really tell, but if I hold it at an angle, you can see much better. Ah, yeah, when I'm looking on the camera, I can really see that it's doing what I want. Excellent. Oh, and we're at time. Well, let's call it good there. I guess I'll hold this up for one last close-up view. See if my camera wants to focus. No? I can't tell. Nope, it had not focused. One last close-up view. So we added 2 or 3, I think 3 more layers of black paint to the black feathers and fur, 3 layers of shading to the white feathers, and a little bit of shading on the green party hats. I'm really, really pleased with this one's wings. This is my favorite thing that I did today. And this guy over here. Ah, just making more progress every day. It's so awesome. So fun. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yay! I'm glad you like it. And you are welcome. I'm so glad you were able to join me. It makes it so much more fun when I'm not by myself the whole time. Okay, so let's see if there's anybody. Looks like we have enough for a small rating party. Let's see if there's anybody streaming who I'm following. Oh, we haven't rated David Peterson in a little while. Let's go see what David Peterson is working on. I was getting up and going over to my PC workstation. Way easier for me to raid from over here. And then also get started on my post-stream follow-up work, like uploading my YouTube video and stuff. Let's see. Moving browser over here. Open a new tab with Twitch. Ah, there we are. Yay. /raid David Peterson. I think that's spelled correctly. Yep, 3 E's. Peterson. Sweet. Go. Boom! The raid has been created. Yay! Alright. Well, while the countdown is going, thank you everybody who joined me today, especially Exie. I was so happy to see you in the chat and not being lonely. I'll be back tomorrow with more of this same illustration. I'm probably just going to leave everything exactly how it is. So I hope to see you then. Yeah, the countdown is done, so let's go! Alright, the raid worked. So if you're still on my channel, or if you're watching the recording later, as I said, that's it for me today. Hope to see you tomorrow. Thank you for watching!